Go ahead, Ian.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 Willington Board of Education meeting. First thing we'll do is start, just one thing, Michelle is in Japan visiting her daughter, so I will be acting as chair this evening. So first thing we'll do is start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's time for present to speak. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand and identify your name and your address. Arthur Christensen.
Hi, Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. I just want to thank Phil for presenting the 3 projects to the ARPA Commission last night. And I am hopeful that all 3 of them go through, but that's up to the commission, not here or there. But I just wanted to put it out there. Thanks to Phil for the work on that presentation.
Okay, thank you, Arthur. Nicholas, Tella.
Hey, Nick Tella, 49 Myrtle. So during the SBC meetings, I keep on being told that the upgrades of the school is not something that the SBC is looking into, being that their charge is to find a building for pre-K to 8. So with that being said, I would like to see the Board of Education try to look into what the exact costs are for the upgrades, being that the numbers that have been displayed, from what I keep on hearing, are not the true numbers. I keep on hearing that there's more things to be added to this list. I think the Board of Education should push for, these numbers to be put out to the public. We got a declining population that's been going on. And I just saw that there's going to be another 3 million kids leaving the public schools throughout the country in the next 7 years. And Connecticut was one of the hardest hits region in the country. So again, I'd just like to see the upgrades happen and see if the Board of Education can take that on. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Nick. Is there anyone else present to speak? Okay. Next, we have our chairman's report. And since Michelle is not here, we do not have a chairman's report. So we'll move on to communications. Phil, anything for communications?
Yeah, I just got a communication today from Ralph Toulis. It was just a communication about some minutes that were not on the website, whether the Board of Ed side or the town side. They were all approved through the Board of Ed meetings, but for some reason they're not there. So Brenda's on it and she'll be filling in the gap, but that was the only communication I received.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Phil. Next, we have old business, our field trip update. Did you want to say anything, Phil, before Mary Kay?
Yeah, so I just asked Mary Kay, the principal, to be here. She has just taken her presentation and added 1 slide to it. So with the questions that the board had last meeting, and I will share my screen and she can go through what's there.
Hi, everyone. So thank you very much for having me back with the answers to these questions. I did speak with the representative from Destinations Unlimited, who would be the company that would be leading our group through Washington, D.C. One of the questions that was asked, a very important question, was about how much it would cost for students to attend if the 3 chaperones costs were not included in their total cost. And if the travel agent removed the 3 chaperone costs, because it's usually 1 chaperone for every 10 students, and I'm figuring for at least 30 students, it would be $792 per student, as I believe that the total for the other was $859. So there would be a difference there in the cost for 4 students in a room. in terms of the costs and what's due when, the travel agent or the company needs at least $100 deposit from each student by the end of February. This is mainly due to the fact that they need to secure tickets to certain attractions. So for example, certain blocks of tickets become available at certain dates, and they want to be sure that they're able to purchase them. There is a 4% service fee if we use an online payment plan. She suggested, and other schools that I have conferred with, collect the money within house and just keep an Excel sheet of who's paid what, and then pay by check to the company instead, which saves a substantial amount of money, especially if we're looking to keep costs low for families. Insurance for a student to have their trip covered is a very low $34.50. If the student has to cancel for any of the reasons that are listed in the policy, and this would be shared with families prior to them purchasing, then they would receive $100 refund, 100%, refund of the monies that they have paid. If they cancel the trip and it's for reasons that are not listed and they have insurance, they get a 75% refund. If they do not have the insurance, the family would lose the money that they have paid up until that point. So if they've only paid $300 and we haven't collected the full balance, that's the money that would be lost if for any reason somebody had to cancel. I remember a board member asking, I believe it was Michelle, about trips, about stopping on the way back because there was only one stop listed. There is more than one stop, mainly due to biologically, that's a very, very long way to go. But the second stop is very short because the driver needs to stay under a certain number of hours in order to be able to continue to drive for that day. They have a certain limit of the number of hours that they can legally drive. But there is more than one stop on the way home. If a student gets ill, that was a question that was asked. If it's a short-term illness, like say they ate too much junk food or they got motion sick on the bus or something like that, a chaperone would stay back with the student in whatever venue they were in. They would remain in a quiet spot. Maybe they would have to be in the hotel room when the rest of the group went off. If the illness was a more sustained one, maybe they had a fever, broke a bone, any of those things, the parent would come to get the child. That's something that's written right into the travel contract. Students are encouraged to bring their own spending money, and this is at the discretion of the family, depending upon what families can swing, but there are many really great places for students to purchase souvenirs, and there are certain things that every student loved to get. Last year, she mentioned that the big seller was like the bucket hat and the sweatshirt. The trip coordinator herself will be holding at least one informational meeting for parents prior to them even signing up, and then there is an informational meeting closer to the beginning of the trip, so for any last minute details or anything that may have popped up in that short period of time. So I think that covers the questions that were asked at the last meeting. So I'm open for any other questions you may have at this time, because I've had frequent conversations with the woman.
Donna?
Thank you so much for putting this together. I appreciate it. I did watch the video of last time's, so I just had some follow-up questions. One is food allergies. I know as someone who has a restrictive diet, I know sometimes when you're traveling with a large group where you're kind of it's decided where you have to be, it's really a challenge. So I don't know if any of this would apply to any of the students, but if it does, are there steps in place to make sure that student has access to food that's safe for them?
Yes, the 8th grade class, there is no one in the 8th grade class right now that has a substantial food allergy, but medical forms and all of those things would be filled out. And just like any field trip, our school nurse debriefs with chaperones and provides a full list of anything that needs to be avoided. We're very lucky in that our 8th graders have a sense of autonomy and ownership over their health. And there's many options that are adhering to dietary restrictions. So that is always taken into account whenever we leave the school building.
That is awesome. And I think you answered this already, but last week, or the last meeting seemed like there was a really long trip back. Are they, I mean, for somebody to go from breakfast to late at night with 2 meals doesn't seem reasonable. So they're going to be extra food available on the bus?
Yes. The beautiful thing about the bus is that it is ours for the duration of the trip. It is dedicated for us and our group. So other chaperones who have been on trips like this have advocated for having snacks on the bus, cases of water, and those things would be held on the bus for us and kept. Non-perishable items like that are easy to keep. And then, as I mentioned, there is a stop along the way for a larger meal, and then a shorter stop for something that is maybe a little tied over. Students are also encouraged to pack a backpack and their own snacks because, sometimes I know my own son, he's anti-generic, like nacho chips, and maybe if you have a specific kind. So they will have their own things as well.
Okay. And then the last thing I was thinking about, I know that the Scouts used to do a bottle can drive at the transfer station. I think that was discontinued some time ago. It might be a good idea to start something like that up now and have it in place to raise money, because even if this trip ends up falling through for some reason, or the class decides to go in a different direction, they would still have funds for whatever it is that they do want to do. And that, or even maybe contributing towards the 8th grade dance, if that still happens.
Yes, and that's an excellent point. Thank you. A bottle and can drive, or more than one, has been suggested as one of the fundraisers that would lower the cost across the board. So yes, great idea, and certainly something that is already brewing, especially by some of the parents who have sort of been really interested in seeing this out for their kids.
Sounds good. If you decide to do that, I know there's a place close by that allows you to drop off large volumes, so you don't have to sit at one of those machines.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
All right. Thank you very much for the additional information.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have a question or comment for Mary Kay? Okay. Thank you so much, Mary Kay, for sharing that.
And can I put MK on the spot for a minute?
Sure.
MK, if the board is going to approve this, do you have a minimum number that you would want to hit to be able to go? Because it's the trip total doesn't change, right?
Correct.
And it's just divided by the number. So if you only had 22 that wanted to go, would you still go?
I mean, I've given her 30 as my number, mainly due to the results I received on the survey. Okay. We have, I think, 42 8th graders, maybe, I think 45 now. We did actually just get a new student in yesterday. But I've been using 30 as my number.
Okay, so it's probably going to be important to share in that first sit down if you get an approval, just to say, look, if we only get 24, the price is the price, and it's divided by 24.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
And I've had her do a number of iterations of the price for me, just because, I'm not you're never really sure, even if you get 35 people at the outset to say, oh, yes, I'm going. Once things start to move, you can't really count on that. So
Right.
it is something that I have been thinking about.
Okay. Yeah, you need that commitment. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you need that commitment soon. So Ann, I'm not sure you can breeze by tonight. I think that if MK had her way, she would have loved an approval last meeting. I think if the board is going to take action, it would probably be helpful to do that tonight to keep
Excellent.
fundraising efforts going, to get the whoever the coordinator is scheduled and get more details out and make some commitments for kids. So you would need just simply, I think, because there is no policy on the books and we are creating these fine details as we go. You got the majority of the details. I would work with MK and her team to finalize any other details and just share out kind of some of the finer things at the board meetings. But I think she's looking for some sort of approval tonight, and quite frankly, so am I.
Okay, very good. I move that we approve a field trip for the 8th grade class to Washington, DC in June of 2023. Do you want it more flexible, Mary Kay, or is June good?
June's good. We
Okay.
have the dates already kind of set if we went for approval, so that's perfect.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second?
Tracy Anderson, I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Donna?
Yeah, I have a question. When we're doing this, do we have to say anything about contingent upon it being a minimum of a certain number of students? Or do we have to put anything like that in? I'm not sure.
I think based on the discussion that Phil and Mary Kay just had, they would make it very clear to the parents that the cost would be the price divided by the number of students. Am I correct, Mary Kay, rather than having a minimum? Okay. Does
Okay.
that answer your question, Donna?
Yeah, I just didn't know if we needed to add anything to what we were saying.
I think not with that
You're high
case.
level here. You're high level. We'll get into the real specifics in those parent meetings.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Herb, did Herb vote? An aye, very good.
Yes, he
Okay,
said
very
aye.
good.
Yep.
So it passes, Mary Kay. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful opportunity for the kids.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thanks, MK. Have a good night.
Okay, our next item is our superintendent's report.
Yep, thanks. So I'll go through just some general things first. Just want to make a note. If you hadn't seen David Tharp, who is a prior Board of Education member from some years back, passed unexpectedly. His wife, who works for EastCon, is one of our employees. So obviously just wanted to send off our condolences to the family. They've had some tragedy in their life. And so I will just, Donna sent me a card today. I had already sent her a card from my office, but I will send a card on behalf of the Board of Education to the family. So FYI on that. Just some general updates. I did send you an email about our really awesome flood on Christmas Day in room 11 at Center School. That is a brand new heating unit. We have brand new heating units in 8 rooms. This is something that we got very lucky on. And I'll tell you, we got lucky because you made a commitment, you made an investment into that Delta system that I had talked to you about. And that Delta system is worth its weight in gold. We were notified very quick of a temperature drop in the building. And because of that, Matt Jensen, our maintenance coordinator there at Center School, and myself zipped up to school, saw the room. It was contained to one room. It wasn't even the entire room, nothing like last time, thank goodness. And called in some support, and we were able to clean up the mess And I will tell you that Service Master on more than one occasion offered us jobs because they're like, wow, you did a great job. You've done this before. And we're like, yeah, unfortunately, we have done this before because of last time. What I'll tell you is MCOR has a solution for us because it's a brand new unit. It's a design from the 1980s. And so all that cold air is coming into the unit and you have to have that fresh air intake and it's right on the ground. So they're coming up with a solution so that it doesn't happen again. And the Delta system is nice, but we don't want to have any floods, obviously. So thanks to Matt Jensen and Sean Farrington, they came right in on Christmas Day, no questions, spent the time and checked over the next couple of days and did a great job with the cleanup. So I also have to say thanks to Service Master. A lot of people didn't answer their phones on Christmas Day. And I will tell you, the president of that group is the one that called me. And so thanks to them for that support. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that again. Arthur Christensen talked about the ARPA submissions. We had the 3 submissions, went through that public hearing last night. It's the poured playground surface, the recess equipment, and just the kind of educational extension activities. And Arthur's the one that came up with, can we do something directly for kids? They were impacted by this as well, by the pandemic. And so it was well received. There were no votes last night, so we don't know where it will go, but this is all student driven. And that was my message last night at the hearing, is that we will put kids in charge of, with teachers and administrators, of identifying how to spend those dollars and what to come up with. The only one that's not is the playground surface. So I'll keep you posted on that. Just a reminder, coming up, we do have our first budget meeting next week, that workshop on Tuesday, January 17th. I am going to share my screen here and I'm going to get MK stuff off. Can you see my screen with dates?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So
Answers the
I have to go
questions.
out. It's a new safety
Mhm.
feature. And come back in. There you go. So I'm assuming you can see it now.
There it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is what you would approve. These are the workshop dates: Tuesday, January 17th, 3 programs. The 24th, you have 5 programs, and then the programs for 8 and 9 are on that 31st. You could decide to make some decisions on the 31st, or if you need that February 14th meeting, but make sure you have those on the calendars that already went out. And I think Brenda sent a reminder today. Those are via Zoom and they are all 6 p.m. And then this is something I just got the details for all of the rest of kind of Board of Finance's work. I can share this out with you too, but this is going to be in your budget next week. So don't feel like you need to write these dates down. Just so you know when the town meeting is, referendum, budget hearing, all of those things. So keep those on your calendar and we will work through that next week. I just wanted to share that just what's been happening in my office, and I apologize to my administrators last week. I kind of feel like I've really just been on the school building committee train, and that's been about 95% of my work recently. So I have spent a considerable amount of time doing school building committee work in really the last couple months. I've done 2 staff presentations. I've done 5 public presentations. The final public presentation before the community engagement night is tomorrow night at Center School. It's at 6:30 p.m. We have babysitting, we have pizza. Hopefully we have the crowd like we did last time. We had about 25-30 people last time. I also have, we scheduled 4 2-hour windows at the transfer station to answer questions. And so those are on a flyer that went out today. I think it's going to be on the town's website, but it's also all over Facebook. And we anticipate the SBC is going to decide on February 1st which one project they'll suggest to send a referendum. And that's based upon a lot of data. There's a survey out right now. There's paper copies in the town hall. You can click a link, you can scan a QR code. So complete that survey so the SBC knows where people stand, and that's no different from the board. You could do that as well. So that's kind of my general update. As far as staffing goes, We were able to fill the opening we had at 4th grade. We hired Melon Gallo. She's an experienced teacher from East Hartford. She's going to come in and teach 4th grade for us, and Maddie starts on Tuesday, January 17th, next week. And so we welcome her to our staff. And if you didn't know, I think I shared this, but Michelle Shine was teaching 4th grade. She's going up to teach math at the middle school. That was an internal move, and that was a request by her. So congrats to both of them. Wanted to give you a quick plumbing update. You approved some money, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's pretty well spoken for at this point. You improved $10,000, $5,000 from each for each school. And so just want to give you a kind of a quick update of what we're doing with those funds at Center School. We are replacing, there's a leaky cast iron sewage pipe in the basement where we have our storage area and the custodian space. That's being repaired. We have a classroom supply drain and faucet that's being done. There's a bathroom that's getting a new supply drain and faucet. We're replacing the teacher's room supply drain is bad, so that's being done. We'll have to put a new faucet in there. And then we are going to pull 2 wall mount toilets off and address leaks. So that will be done. Those are all Center School projects. So it's kind of prioritizing, having those professionals come in and say, look, this is going to be bad if you don't do this. I'm saving you today. Hall Schools pictures. Steve Felino, the maintenance director over there, sent me a picture today. And the corrosion in these pipes is tough. There's on one of the pipes he sent me at Hall School. So they removed the urinal. And I think Tracy Anderson, you made this comment last time, like one plumbing project could quickly cover your $5,000. And they have one significant plumbing project that is going to eat up a lot of their money. There was a urinal with a cracked pipe that was leaking into the wall. They had to pull that urinal off. They had to break open the wall. And they have to, replace those rotting pipes. So that's work that they're doing. He has some other smaller things, vacuum breakers, spuds, and wax seals that are being replaced. But those dollars are being spent, and they're being spent wisely based upon the significant need. So that's my quick update for kind of general and some of the plumbing and staffing things.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And do you have Donna, you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have a request, and then I have a question. So my request is, the last time we went through the budget process, you were kind enough to identify which items were contractual. So the number's the number. I know we need to be aware of what it is, but we also know that we don't have any choice. So if you could identify those items, so that we and the public have an understanding of what's contractual.
Will do.
I think that'll be helpful with the process. It's probably similar to last time's. The other thing is, it really bothers me that stuff like a leaky sewage pipe has been gone without being taken care of until recently. So if there are any other things like that, because that's a serious health problem, that at either school, I think those need to be brought to our attention. I don't think that those kind of things should wait for any length of time to be addressed, because those are health issues,
Right.
And safety issues.
So some of those fixes, Donna, when I say that, there's a short-term fix and there's a long-term fix. And so sometimes when it's expensive, it may be a short-term fix until there's funds. And so there was a short-term fix in place for that. And then once the funds became available, it was like, okay, let's do it the right way for a long-term fix. So we don't have to do the short-term fix 3 times just with the funding. So yeah, it's not like it's running sewage through that room.
Well, and it's important too for us to know which stuff has a short-term fix, which is the Band-Aid, and what really needs to be, seriously dealt with.
Sure.
In the planning process. And some of the pictures that I've seen of the schools are kind of disturbing, because I feel like we should know about that stuff ahead of time. They shouldn't be surprises, I'm sure the maintenance staff is well aware of what the problem is. And I was really kind of surprised with the flood that you said that was a newer unit.
New unit.
Is whatever caused the newer unit to do that? Are the other newer units being looked at to see if they're ready to have the same problem?
Yeah, so they've gone and MCOR has gone and done some addressing of the specific units. It's basically they're exposed to cold air outside. So you could turn your heat to 90, and as soon as it's satisfied to 90 degrees in the room, the pipe is still exposed to the outside. The heat's not going to kick back on. And it's just the fresh air intakes are right on the exterior wall. You get a cold day with wind and it's pushing that wind right into the back of that unit. And so they're looking at doing a few things within the pipes. They're looking at, it's like proactive and reactive. The first response I got was a little more reactive, meaning like you could put just similar to the Delta situation, you could put something on each individual unit. So if the temperature drops, but to me, if the temperature drops, it means that something froze and now we're going into cleanup anyway. So we literally just talked again today about proactive measures, about is it insulation? Is it, can we close those, the open vents up, and we're not supposed to, they're covered right now, but that's going to be removed. And so trying to have a solution that's going to allow that type of unit ventilator to operate as it was intended, with the fresh air, but not freezing, having pipes freeze, because that just, that can't happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Herb, is your hand up? Are you just fixing your screen? Donna, that's one of the problems with having a 50-year-old and a 100-year-old building. These types of things are inevitable, and that's why the school building committee is working so hard to try to provide the kids with a new energy efficient school that won't have all of these problems, and we won't have to be doing short-term and long-term fixes all the time. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, next we have our January financial report. Bill?
Yep. Am I muted? No. Sorry, I'm trying to move bars around so I can see you too. So this is the financial report. I'm going to be honest, there's not a significant change here. For the most part across the board, it's pretty consistent. The only major change was in special education. There's it doesn't look like there's much money left there in that program 3. And the money for outplacements and transportation was encumbered. However, what I'll tell you is, with no idea grants applied, and we have not encumbered funds yet for school, we have not gotten the grants back for the money back for excess cost, which is probably $150,000. That money will come back into this account. So we're in good shape still there. So for the most part, this is in good shape. This is we're waiting that diesel reimbursement. And once we have that final adjustment here with the new hire, we'll tweak this number one more time with a fringe, and the majority of that, is just the folks we hired waived insurance for whatever reason. The folks that left were taking. So we had budgeted based upon our current group, and we've gotten lucky. People are just not taking insurance. So there's a bit of a surplus here as of today. That can always change. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Yep.
Okay, for our new business, do we have anyone to approve, motion to approve the minutes for our December 13th meeting? Anyone? Phil, Herb?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of 12/13/20.
Okay, thank you, Herb. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Laura, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposes? Any abstentions?
I
Okay,
abstain.
they're approved. Next, we want to. approve-
And
Yes, Phil.
and Donna abstains, so you need to go do a roll call. I mean,
Yeah, I wasn't present, so I abstained.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay. A roll call to approve the minutes of the December 13th, 22 meeting. Okay, Herb,
Yes,
Tracy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
let's see, Donna.
Abstain.
All right, myself, yes. Am I
that's everybody. Yep,
and forgetting anyone? I'm going from pictures, so sorry.
that's everybody. You got it.
Kind of a random approach. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 15th curriculum committee meeting?
I move to
Laura?
approve, I move to approve the minutes of the curriculum meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
Tracy Anderson, I accept.
Okay,
mean, no.
Tracy? Okay.
A second.
Okay, thank you, Tracy and Laura. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so let's do a roll call. This is a roll call to approve the minutes of the December 15th curriculum committee meeting. All right, Herb?
yes,
All right, Tracy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
I'm not seeing, who am I missing? Oh, Donna?
Abstain.
Okay, myself, aye. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, Phil, can I turn it back to you for the science curriculum first reading?
Sure can. So, perfect. Aaron's here. Thanks, Aaron. So, Katie, I'm just going to unmute you so that you can speak if you need to jump in. So the curriculum committee has gone through the grades 5 through 8 science curriculum. The changes, the writing that Aaron has done with her team. And so they made a recommendation to send it to you. So you've had it, I don't know, close to a month now, I think. We did answer, and hopefully, Donna, you saw some of the responses you got back today. Thank you for sending in questions. It's helpful. And so what I asked Aaron to do, Dr. Conley, was really to just do a high level, quick presentation, similar to what she did with the curriculum committee, just to give some background information. Why are we here? What are we doing? Why NGSS? And then just open it up for questions if that will work. So Aaron, I can share my screen if you'd like.
Yes, please.
I stole your thunder there, right?
Yeah, no, well, that's okay. So I'm actually going to, oh yeah, can you go back to the so I put this together with a lot of links, so I'm hoping we can put this up on the website so people, if anyone has further information, wants to dig deeper, there's lots of links that will take you to specific places based on some of this information. So we're going to breeze through some pieces of this presentation. I'm not going to go too deep in them, but I wanted to make sure they were there as a resource in case anyone wanted to go back to them later. I am also going to say that if at any point the curriculum committee or Katie, you guys want to chime in on any of our conversations, please, or add to what I'm sharing, please feel free to kind of just share your 2 cents. So again, this is going to be over a very big kind of overarching view of Open SciEd, which is the major resource we're going to be using eventually K-8, but currently 5th through 8th grade. The link down below where you see that red Open SciEd, that will bring you to the Open SciEd landing page. Phil, I don't know if you want to click on that quickly just to see so here's the Open SciEd landing page. Almost all of the links I've included bring you to some place within this website. The Why Open SciEd is a great place to start if you want to review the resource. That link on the top, this is Why Open SciEd, has a lot of different a lot of information around the different components, how it's created, the research behind each unit before it's published, so you can really kind of understand the validity, the reliability, and the extent of the program. Additionally, if you're interested in what the actual curriculum looks like, you have access via this website to every part of the curriculum. So you can if you go to middle school science, if you go to middle school, you'll see the units. I don't know if you want to walk through it or if you want me to just go over it. Yep. So, and here you can explore the curriculum and get every single unit. If you click within the unit, you have access to all the lessons, all the resources. So if at any point you're interested in digging deeper, everything is right here on this website. All right, if we can go back to, yep, perfect. And next screen. Yep. So why did we choose Open SciEd? As you guys know, the state shifted to the next generation science standards. I want to say about 7 years ago. And throughout that shift, if you're not familiar, the huge shift from the way we kind of learned science growing up to the way it is now is a group of researchers and universities, in order to create the science standards, really studied scientists and figured out, like, what does their practice look like? What is it like to be a scientist? What are they actually engaged in? And they mimicked the process of how we learn, or how they work with how we learn, in addition to research around how we learn concepts. So combining all of that information, they created the next generation science standards, but also a very comprehensive program, which you've heard is next generation NGSX, which is the professional development piece. Open SciEd is kind of that next component, which takes all of those, encompasses it into it, and layers on now a written curriculum. Some of these talk about the shifts, and some of these bullet points on the right also talk about, like, the why this. So one, it's the only resource out there that has every single unit they've published rated as high quality. All the closest one to it has a 93% rating. So this has the highest rating of all of the resources out there for teaching science. It also, again, as I mentioned, really is built off scientists, science researchers, and educators collaborated to develop this curriculum. So you have actual scientists as well as educators who developed this program. They also were part of the piloting and revising of the units. So each unit goes through an 18-month process where it's piloted, revised, tried again, and then revised before it's published. This program is fully designed, not just aligned to NGSS. It's actually designed from the standards. A lot of programs, you'll see the word aligned. That means it speaks to, or kind of has some connections with, where this was truly designed at a deep level. It is phenomena based, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but that is also a huge shift. So every unit, instead of having these discrete lessons where you have a different objective around a topic, you have a phenomena that kids have to investigate and understand, which pulls in all of the different science standards, and then ultimately transfer their learning to a new situation. That's their final task. So instead of a summative test, which we're used to, there really are not very many. I don't think there's any tests. There are some quizzes, but again, they're more performance-based, not memorization and regurgitation. So the final task is, using all of your learning from the unit, can you apply your learning and what you learned to a new situation that's similar but not exactly the same? So those phenomena are very driven, and that's what's actually assessed. It's also driven, it's very student-centered. It's driven by student-led questioning. So the students' questions drive the next lesson. And the students are constantly investigating, they're developing their investigations, they're running the investigations, and then the problem solving together. And lastly, and the biggest shift, is the teacher is not a lecturer. Teachers are not the sage on the stage anymore. We do not follow like a gradual release where it's I do, and I'm going to show you how to do this, then you do it, or we do it together, then you do. It is, students are engaged pretty deeply in a productive struggle. It is inquiry based. And so the teacher does a lot of planning up front prior to seeing the kids. And then with the kids, they're really just asking questions to facilitate and guide the students towards what they need to understand. I'm going to pause for a second and ask Katie. So Katie Richling has joined us. She's our 7th grade science teacher. And I just want to ask her to share maybe some kind of firsthand accounts about any of those bullet points.
Yeah, so I remember having this conversation with you, Erin, a few years ago, and seeing some of these bullet points, thinking about the way I used to teach science can be a little intimidating. Thinking about the idea that students' questions are going to drive what I am teaching. I remember going to you and saying, how am I supposed to plan for that? But it really has come full circle for me now that I've completed my first unit and I'm now into my second. I've noticed that the initial engagement with these lessons, I started with doing a demonstration on bath bombs, and our current unit, we looked into flameless heaters and specifically meal ready to eat things, and the engagement is there, which just it forces students to take ownership of their learning, and these questions that they develop really does drive exactly what we're doing. So when we look at a flameless heater, they're asking questions like, why is it producing heat? What ingredients are causing it to produce heat? How hot is it getting? Which is exactly the route we're taking in our investigation. So it was a big shift for me to think that I am now facilitating and not lecturing, rather than telling students this is an exothermic reaction. It is astonishing to see the language they come up with on their own, the conversations they have without me having to directly tell them. So the big shift here really is this application of learning. So we investigate all of these things, and I'm most interested that they're able to really apply this to the bigger picture. So it's been a great process. The kids have really enjoyed it so far. It's definitely very different from my middle school or even high school experience, but even in the short time I've been using it, it has paid off. So it's been wonderful so far.
Thanks, Kitty. All right, next screen. So here, we're not gonna play the video, but if you would like to see, kind of what this looks like in practice, what does it mean when a teacher's facilitating versus not standing and kind of lecturing? This is a great, pretty short 3-minute video. And then the link at the top, which is underlined inside an open side classroom, that's actually goes even further. So you can click on that link. I don't know if there's other videos, but there's other examples and paragraphs and an overview of the kind of the shifts and what the open sided classroom looks like in comparison to a former science classroom. And again, so this is another piece of the process. So the process of learning science is really emphasized in NGSS. And so these are the routines that Open SciEd utilizes to kind of walk kids through that process. And they have each different routines, and you'll see in the written curriculum documents that these are outlined in terms of routines, but I wanted to give you an idea of kind of what are they and where did they come from. So if you want, and that link at the top again goes very into depth of every single routine, gives you multiple paragraphs about what it looks like, what kids are engaged in during that routine, and kind of where they would come in the process of the unit. And they are engaged in the routines every single routine multiple times throughout the unit. Thank you. Next. Storyline. So as I mentioned, the phenomena is usually the guiding, basically that anchor. So there's an anchor phenomena. It's a really, really large phenomena that anchors all of the supporting lessons throughout that unit. Which creates a storyline. That's what we use the term storyline. Here's an example of just the first 2 lines of a much deeper storyline. I believe, Katie, this actually is this your unit now? Yeah. So so you'll see that a storyline basically has a phenomena with a lesson question, which the kids are trying to figure out, the phenomena or design problem, which you'll see in the second, what they figure out in the third block. So from that phenomena or the design problem, what should they get at the end of this lesson? What should they be what knowledge should they walk away with? And how do they represent their knowledge? Models are huge, data is huge. So representing what we know and learn is equally as important to regurgitating it via verbatim. So you'll see that last column is how is it represented within that lesson? And a full storyline, usually, well, the units really, really differ, but I know a lot of, usually the storylines are a minimum of like 12 to 18, but they can be longer and sometimes they can be a little shorter. But I'd say they usually fall within 12 to 18 storylines, literally lines. Because I don't want to call them lessons, because some of them could be multiple days, which you'll see on the left side. You can see that one line of the story could be, that first one's 4 days long. So it doesn't mean one line, one day. Again, if you want to dig deeper into storylines, see some more examples, there's that link at the top of the page. Vocabulary. So this is a huge, also a very huge shift. And you'll see Open Science often talks about creating a culture of equity. What they mean when they say equity is really that all students have the ability to access instruction and achieve the objective and the results. So one of those major steps that they take is by not necessarily pre-teaching vocabulary, because what they've learned, especially for maybe possibly a language learner, an English language learner, that vocabulary, you're less likely to speak and share ideas if you're intimidated by the verbiage you need to utilize, or the words. So by taking out those big scientific terms when kids are first learning a concept, to learn the concept without attaching those fancy words, understand that concept at a very deep level, ensure that everyone understands it to a certain level, and then introduce the word so they can then attach that word to, they have that schema to attach the word to, and they truly understand the concept before introducing that word. So when you see the word in vocabulary said words that are earned, those are the words that students grapple with, and they really understand the concept before we tell them what that term is and what that concept is actually called. The next, you might see that they encounter the words. Those are words that they're not necessarily grappling with at a deep level. They may not be a huge priority or bulk of the lesson, but they're still words that are important, scientific terms that are important. And so they do encounter them, and they talk about it, they utilize them in their discourse as well. And then lastly are reinforced. Those just means that those words were previously earned or encountered, so the students should be familiar with them, and they're just being reinforced throughout this lesson. And lastly, just kind of some information on the KA curriculum. So
Erin, if you don't mind me just adding.
Oh, yes,
please. Go back one slide just for the vocabulary. Thinking about vocabulary and how it was introduced even 5 years ago, students would be given a list of vocabulary terms such as exothermic reaction, and they would be expected to really just regurgitate that back to me. What it looks like now is us exploring what things look like. They're able to tell me, heat is being produced in this chemical reaction. They're able to identify that there's a color change. And then through those observations, through that exploration, we're then able to put a name to it. It's an exothermic reaction, because heat is being produced. We have evidence and data to support that. I remember even when I was in high school, I would have tricks and strategies to memorize vocabulary, such as like this phrase is located in this definition. I had no idea what it meant, but using those strategies, I was able to pinpoint it. Now we're really making sure that students understand what these definitions mean. So really reversing the way that we're teaching them. I'm astonished at the vocabulary that my students are able to use just from reversing and switching this process of how it's introduced to them. Because Erin will even say, when this was introduced to me in this way, I'm like, what are you talking about? How am I supposed to do this? And I'm seeing the benefit of it really in the conversations I'm able to have with my students. So, and also just to add to that, I know that one of the questions or one of the comments you brought up was how tests are not something that we are often given. I just want to clarify that what we are assessing is still there. It's just not in the formal way of, tell me what this definition is. Rather than them telling me the definition for a chemical reaction, they're showing me or identifying it. So we're still checking those boxes of assessing student learning. It just looks different. And really the big piece here is them being able to apply their knowledge. So they're learning something through a phenomena that we're introducing to them, such as bath bombs. But then when shown a similar situation, they're now able to explain to me exactly what's going on using all of this content vocabulary, just because of the way it's introduced. The content that we're teaching has not changed, It's really just the way that we're teaching it. And the vocabulary really has helped that.
Thanks, Katie. I'm also going to, the link that I included earlier to the Open SciEd, there is a whole page on how do we assess? If we're not providing tests, how do we assess with this? So if you're interested to see kind of, well, how are they coming up with a grade for my student? Or how are they, there's a whole page and there's videos that will show you how assessment works within Open SciEd. And again, they are performance-based. So they typically are performance expectations. So K-8 curriculum. So currently, you guys have in your hands for review the middle school units for grades 5 through 8. 5 is kind of, we're going to talk about that in a second, but 5 is a little bit of a placeholder. Because Open SciEd has only currently released the grade band for 6 through 8 standards. So the curriculum right now is 6th grade through 8th grade that Open SciEd has released. We are using it right now, 5th grade through 8th grade, because 5th and 6th grade both have only half a year of science. So we took 2 of the 6th grade units and put them down into 5th grade for now, since Open SciEd does not have a 5th grade curriculum quite yet. So we are using 2 of those in the 5th grade, and then the other 2 6th grade in the 6th grade half of the year. 7th and 8th grade have a whole year of science, so they have 4 units per grade. 5th grade, like I said, is using 6th grade until the K-5 Open SciEd curriculum is released. And that will be happening. I'm going to get to that in a second. In terms of, so how did we choose the units that we chose? So what we did is we went back to the NGSS testing data that the state had shared with us. We also, I mean, I was working with the science teachers. They really did a lot of the bulk of this. So they knew the students, they knew what kind of where they were. We looked at the gaps, and we really tried to pick out units that Earth and space science, which was one of our gaps that we were seeing in the test data. So we definitely included those, as well as kind of the larger concepts that are hit between the 6th through 8th grade grade band. But then there's a dependency diagram. So what they show you is, in order to teach, let's say, the specific unit on Earth and space, they really need the prerequisite knowledge from this previous grade unit, or this previous grade unit. So we went back, prioritized Earth and space, and then went back and added those units that they would need to have the background knowledge in order to access those units. So we did really utilize the dependency diagram to pick out which units we were going to do at each grade level. Because currently, I believe there's 6 for each grade, and there's just not enough time in our year to do all 6 currently, especially as we're transitioning into them. We're hoping that eventually we can possibly get 5 per the grades that have a full year, but it really does take the shift and transition does take a little bit of, I'd say, a good 2 to 3 years before you're up and running it really smoothly. I think I talked about that one. So the last bullet is the K-5 science curriculum. So kindergarten through 5th grade, Open SciEd currently is in the process of writing the K-5 science curriculum. They're scheduled to begin to release in late 2024, with all units K-5 being completed by 2026. So we do have a little bit of a gap while they're being done, piloted, and revised. Until they're released, our plan, we have a current scope and sequence for K4, and we're utilizing as our major resource Mystery Science K4. Mystery Science is also NGSS, well, it's NGSS aligned. It is phenomena based, and it does shift the teacher into a facilitator, but the units are not as deeply rigorous, and the anchor phenomena is not always as broad and as deep as the Open SciEd curriculum, but it is a great resource. It's a great starting point. It's actually going to be a really nice stepping stone for K4 teachers to kind of become familiar with some of those shifts without having to jump deeply into the Open SciEd, and kind of take a little stepping stone towards it over the next couple of years. Katie or the curriculum committee, do you guys want to add anything? Did I miss anything from our conversations? Laura, I don't know if you want to say anything because I know that this is your.
I had a feeling you would call on me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I think you did a really good job of presenting it. I just, listening to Katie, brings me back to when I first encountered next gen science standards, which was at the STEM school after I left Willington. And then when I went into the doctoral program, even more so, the underlying instructional methods. And I was so energized by it, but also I was like, why didn't this come to me in my early years of science teaching? So you all may not know this, right? But I taught Katie when she was in 7th grade. And so, it's like, I want to apologize. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know about this method of teaching. And when I learned it, it's like, it makes so much sense. I mean, just that whole bit on the vocabulary. And, it was like, well, of course, that's why these kids struggle with vocabulary. They have no concept to hang it on. So you focus on the concept, and then when they're struggling because they have to explain the whole concept, it's like, yes, you can explain it with this word. And it's like, oh, that makes everything so much easier. So, yeah, I'm a fan of open science ed. It's aligned with the researchers that I have been both following and interacting with. I'm actually at the moment in Salt Lake City at a science teacher education conference where I'm going to see some presentations from some of these researchers. So it is backed by so much research into how students learn and how they engage with science. And as you said, looking at the actual practices of scientists, and then how do you translate that into the classroom so that children become scientists? And I could go on forever because this is my thing, right? But I think the one huge piece that people who aren't into science education, especially if they didn't have good experiences in science, which I deal with a lot with my elementary science methods. One of the biggest shifts, right, is this phenomena base, and that students and teachers are working together to figure it out. And the engagement comes from like, we are figuring this out. It gives them so much autonomy and, to be actually put in the seat of figuring something out rather than just being told something. We're getting away from that. You just got to fill up the kids with information. When they're figuring out, they're going to remember it. They're so excited to do it. It's so yeah, I'll stop because I could go on forever.
I completely agree, Laura. And I think one of the big shifts for me is just seeing the equity it provides my students. I have students with a wide range of abilities, and every single student is engaged. It is not just the kids that love science, and that is just such a big shift, especially after years of dealing with COVID. That's hard. So I think that's been a really big shift for me. And also just thinking about, we keep going back to assessment, and I know that lab reports, we have conversations with the high school, and they're still going through this process of changing their curriculum. And they're like, well, what about lab reports? All of what we are assessing on those lab reports is still there. I would argue that we dive deeper. And the biggest piece for me with this curriculum is we don't just end when the lab report is done. We don't end with a test. We look at what we did wrong and we go back and we fix it. And that's the biggest piece for us. We just spent a few days, my students proposed a model for their MRE heaters. And we've done so much learning from their initial models to now that they're like, how did I not know this? And we're going to revise it 5 more times before we get to the end process. But the students were just so used to being done. They get an 80 on their test and they move on. It's adding so much value to what they're learning to be able to go back, really understand what they did wrong and move forward and fix it. So I couldn't agree more.
I would also add, when I first started teaching and working with the new science standards and specifically like going through NGSX, that idea that as a teacher, I could actually say, I'm not sure. Like, I really don't know. Let's
Some of the questions they ask, I'm like, I have no idea. Let's figure it out. Yeah.
Their questions blow, like, blew my mind what
Yeah.
they could come up with. And then just, it was really fun to say, you know what, let's put that on the board and investigate that later. So being a learner with them is also, is a big shift, but a whole lot of fun.
And so important, you're modeling being a learner, a lifelong learner. And isn't that what we want for our students, right? To be lifelong learners. I think I saw Herb's hand up. I don't want to take over this whole conversation. Go ahead, Herb.
Yeah, I'm ready for questions if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, and can I say a few?
Herb, yeah,
Ann, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah. This new curriculum sounds very exciting, and it's being implemented in a great way, I guess. The question I have is on the how does the NGSS standards impact the curriculum, and how does that, are you using that, or are you using it temporarily and are you going to drop these standards? But what influence does that have on it in impacting the curriculum that you develop?
So Herb, I'm gonna give you an analogy. They're the heart. The NGSS standards are really kind of the heart of the whole program. All the standards drive the performance expectations, and the phenomena are all driven, well, they're all driven by the standards, in addition to what practices the students are engaged in are driven by the standards. So this curriculum was truly designed with the standards at the heart of it. So no, they're not temporary. They are woven into every aspect of this curriculum, every aspect. The phenomena, the lessons. Sorry?
It's embedded into the curriculum.
Yep, in every area. So they'll be part of it as long as we're using Open SciEd. Those NGSS standards are going to be at the heart of it, the core.
And Herb, if I can just further clarify, nothing is really being taken away from these old science standards that we're used to. So it's not that students aren't learning about plate tectonics anymore, or chemical changes, or cells. All of that stuff is still there. It's really just how we teach it. I don't teach chemistry in isolation anymore. So we don't have a unit on chemistry. We're learning about bath bombs, and we're figuring out what science concepts students need to know in order to better understand bath bombs. In addition to that, the content is there, but also skills are there. So the skill of problem solving is something we do quite often. Even just group work, a lot of those things fall into some of those skills that students are learning. So all of those standards that I was used to in high school or middle school, they're all still there. It's really just how they are organized and presented to students.
Can I add on a little bit to Katie?
Laura?
Because the next gen science standards are very, they're exactly what Katie just said, like the content that students were learning in science, the core concepts are there. The researchers actually looked at, all these science concepts. I mean, it used to be the science curriculum was a mile wide and an inch deep. You had all these different concepts you were trying to teach, all this content. And with the next gen science standards, which came out of research from what's called the science frameworks, researchers realized there are certain core concepts that are really important for people to be able to explain a wide range of natural phenomena, things that happen in the natural world. So that's the content, these core concepts. But then there's two other dimensions that are in each standard. So there's the content, and then there are the practices that scientists use in order to figure out and understand the world. So one of the main ones is modeling, is creating explanatory models. Another is asking questions and solving problems. Another is argumentation, which is scientific argumentation, making a claim, backing it with evidence, and then showing your reasoning of how this all works. So these are the practices scientists use to make sense of the world. And then there are these what they call cross-cutting concepts, which are really big concepts that connect the different disciplines of science and also other disciplines. But things like patterns, scale, proportion, and quantity. So in every next generation science standard, there are 3 dimensions, and they're written as performance expectations, what a student will be able to do at the end of the unit. And it deals with the core concept, the practices they'll use, and these cross-cutting concepts. Open Science Ed, for each of their units, is focused right on one of those performance or more than one of those performance expectations. So as Erin was saying, it is the heart, it is the circulatory system, because it goes through the entire thing of the curriculum. But the standard is very different from when it used to just be content. And then maybe there was a separate section of inquiry skills that were completely divorced almost from the content. Now everything is very integrated in each standard. And I'll stop again.
Donna, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I did not get a chance to look in depthly. I had sent Phil a pretty long list of questions. So I scanned through them. I've got first of all, I had a great time reading through this stuff and learning myself. I did a lot of Googling, so I knew what elephant toothpaste was and all sorts of stuff. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and learning should be fun. What I'm concerned about is some people have to be like, they don't get it. You know, sometimes I need to be told directly, this is how it is, this is what it's called, this is how you do it. So if you have a student that's struggling to connect the dots, I just want to make sure that they're not going to be left behind, even if they're having a good time and they're getting certain aspects. If they're missing the forest through the trees kind of thing, I don't want them, since there's a whole bunch of figure this out. I'm concerned about that. The other thing is, by the time the unit is done, are you making sure that they do know all that vocabulary? You know, they've had a chance to see it in action. They can picture it in their mind, what it means. But when they get to the end, do they have the vocabulary to have a reasonable, age-appropriate conversation, whether with their peers or with you, so that you know they've learned what they need to learn? Because I'm concerned about how woefully behind I see our students being. And I think that this is it seems like this is going to be really great and engaging. But since it seems like there's not something for a parent to look at and say, okay, there's not a lot of grading. There's not, how does a parent know if their kid's on track? How do you know that the kid's on track? Because there's so many students.
Katie, do you want to, because you can talk about it firsthand in terms of what it looks like in your classroom?
Yeah. So Donna, I think that's really where it goes back to just my basic training as a teacher. It's my job to identify when students are not understanding something. And it doesn't mean that, you know, at the end of this or through the process of this, students don't have a written definition of something, or I'm not offering something to assist them to get them where I need them to be. All of that's there. That's really my job. Erin has put the work into developing the curriculum itself. It's my job to put it into practice and identify maybe where we need little things like that, or even it might require me meeting with a special education teacher to get there. But that's my job to make sure I'm meeting students where they're at. What this curriculum offers is engagement more than anything. I can't get students to learn if they aren't interested in what they're learning. And that's what I'm noticing more than anything. They're so interested. They're so excited that they will do whatever they need to do to understand what's going on. When I tell them that we're learning about elephant toothpaste, like, they are there, they are ready to learn, they're excited. So that's the hardest piece of it, but everything else, as far as making sure students understand, because I get that. Sometimes I need something written. I'm very type A in certain ways like that. I need a very concrete plan of what it looks like moving forward. It doesn't mean that those aspects aren't there. It doesn't mean that we're not reading for information at times and learning how to, you know, digest scientific articles. All of that is still there. The biggest piece with this curriculum is that engagement that wasn't always there with previous engagement. So starting off with that, it really hooks students for the entire unit.
And I'm going to piggyback off what Katie said. So the assessing, in terms of how do we know students get it before we move on, let's take models. I'm going to use the example that Laura gave. Models are a huge component of science and engineering practice. So students are, as Katie was talking about, they were revising their models. They do them individually and collaboratively. So you're looking at their individual models, and their models should have those scientific terms if that's where they've gotten to and have defined, and they've gotten to the point where they've defined them and understand them. So you're looking for those. If they don't have those terms, then that's where you know, okay, well, I need to do some more work with this student and get them to understand. So that, why is that not on their model? Additionally, the other power in kind of making sure students get it is they work more collaboratively than they ever have. So they learn from one another constantly. There's a lot of gallery walks, which I know I linked, you know, that's where they get to walk around and look at other students' work, so they can kind of, without any talk, they can talk after and debrief. But even seeing someone else's work, it allows them to say, oh, well, I have that, but I didn't have that. Oh, I never thought of that. Or what is that? And so again, it's bringing that learning and connecting those dots in different ways. So, but if ultimately they've engaged in the productive struggle, they've gone through all these things and they're still struggling with a concept, the teacher, that, as Katie said, that's her job. She's going to make sure she connects the dots for those students, no matter if that means that her directly telling them, finding a different activity to get them to that same place. But it could be handled in a multitude of ways. But we are assessing and ensuring that students are getting these concepts before we move on.
Okay,
So,
'cause I'm concerned
and
that-
was Donna speaking?
Sorry, I was saying, one of the things I'm concerned is if in their process of figuring it out, they've somehow either misinterpreted a piece of information or have a bad piece of information, and they learn something that's scientific, I'm going to say wrong. I think it's going to be hard to, like, learning from your mistakes is one thing, but when you've kind of entrenched something into you, it makes it harder to unlearn it. And I just don't want them to struggle with that. But I kind of like the Miss Frizzle approach of get dirty and make mistakes.
And actually, Donna, some of the research behind this, and this was actually very drilled into my training when I was becoming a presenter for this, was that's actually a misconception, that when students have those misconceptions and they don't have the right thought, when they realize it themselves without being told it, their learning is actually far greater than if someone so those misconceptions are actually very powerful, especially when students, and a teacher's job. So if I see students having a misconception, my job as a teacher, and it may not be in the curriculum, is to find an activity that's going to reverse and get them engaged in the correct, so that they see and experience kind of what it should look like, without telling them. So I might develop another small activity that supplemental activity that I'm going to bring in so they can, but they should be discovering that misconception on their own rather than a teacher telling them that's incorrect. And sometimes in science, things don't work out the way they're supposed to.
So, Ann, I'll make a suggestion. This is a first review. You got the high level review. I'll email you Erin's presentation. I can email the board tomorrow so you can explore the link some more. And then, because this is a first reading, come back and look for approval at your February 14th meeting. I think would be something you can do. I know that, I don't know if other people had real specific questions. Donna sent some real specific questions in, and it was very helpful because we could go into the document. It's very hard to do that in this type of meeting because Erin has written a lot. So I would suggest if anybody has specific questions to email me, I will get the answers from her, and she'll get them from her team, and I can get them back to you. But my suggestion would be take a deeper dive into that presentation, explore those links and see that information, and move forward from there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much, Erin and Katie. It sounds really exciting for the kids to have this wonderful opportunity. Okay, next we have our calendar of meetings. I think we've looked at it before, but
2024.
I don't think you have
meeting
seen this
dates.
one.
Next year.
And Katie and Aaron, feel free to go home. And
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. So let me share my screen here. This is simply the you're basically kind of what's called the 13-month calendar. You're just following the same process of the second Tuesday of the month is your traditional meeting. So sorry, we sent a couple different versions today. This is the correct version, the last version that came out, and it is the second Tuesday of each, and it goes through January of 2024, and then by the end of that January or sometime in December, you just have to identify for your next group of meetings. So you need to approve this. This would go into the town clerk's office.
I make a motion. Oh, Donna, do you have a question?
Oh, I have a question, but I guess I'm sorry, I should wait till after you make a motion. Right? That's the proper
Good.
order.
Either way.
I'll wait.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion that we approve the Willington Board of Education calendar of meeting dates for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a second?
Herb seconded. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Herb. All right, Donna, discussion, begin with Donna.
Oh, yeah, my question was, the April 11th meeting is during vacation week. Should we move that so it's not during vacation week, was my only question. Or if it doesn't make a difference.
I find that with Zoom now, Laura's joining us from, where were you, Laura?
Salt Lake
Somewhere
City.
far away at a conference?
Salt Lake
Okay.
City.
Salt Lake City. So, we can usually take a couple hours where we are
Then I'm fine with it.
to attend. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor, Phil, could we come back to the group scene? Thank you. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any oppositions? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Next, Phil, we have our school calendar for the year, for next school year.
Yep. So this is the draft of the 23-24 school calendar. Just to go through some of the highlights here of what you see, and I'm just you can't see the full thing, I don't think, but it has 6 early release days on it for professional development: September, October, December, February, March, and May. I'm going to tell you, as what you just saw tonight, as we continue to roll out new curriculum and instructional strategies, we have to keep doing this. So the days are, we've cut it more than in half. This year there were 15, and I'm proposing in this those 6 early release days that are in there. We have typically 3 early release days in November. You can see those there. Those are not for professional development. This is basically conferences. 2021 and 22 would be early release for Thanksgiving. And then we have contractually 4 full staff development days. So where you see the SDs, those are the contractual staff development days. And then the 30th there is just an extra day because we do the meet and greet that day. So that's what the 30th would be. And then the first day of school would be the 31st. The last day of school would be the 11th, and it's 182 student days. So sorry, did I say the 30th? The 31st would be the first day of school. Our April vacation is the last thing I wanted to say before you can chime in on this, is the 3rd week of April. And what I'll tell you is that I have worked with Columbia, Ashford, Mansfield, Region 19. There are many of us that school districts that are trying to have some sort of consistency, but really our core has agreed that we're going to do vacation that third week. So of all things that I really request you don't move, that's one of them. The last thing, and Donna Cook, I'm going to sing your praises big time here, that we got a tremendous amount of positive feedback. Last year, you had mentioned, why are we doing a half day the day before the holiday, this vacation break here in December? And it was very, very well received across the board, parents and teachers and staff. That is a Friday this year. You could get away with going to school on the 22nd if you wanted to. Just in my discussions, I put it as a vacation day. And so just to give that 22nd as additional day, it creates a decent break for folks where they would come back on that. I can't see it. Sorry, I have to move you guys on January 2nd. So you could leave that date too, as you know, make this as a full day of school on the 22nd, or leave it as is. But that is the proposed calendar at this point in time. Questions? Donna has her hand up.
Okay, Donna?
Okay, so I looked, first of all, I think it's awesome that Friday before the Christmas, because that gives families a little extra time if they're going to be traveling, and it's all grouped. And so I am definitely pro not moving that. So my question, and I'm looking at it two different ways. So the May staff development day, I get it, it's right before Memorial Day weekend, so having that extra time might be good. But if the purpose of it is for staff to be in training, is it really early enough in the year to have any kind of impact on how they teach or tweaking the process in that way? So I'm not sure if it's just too late in the year and there's none in April. So I can go both ways, but I wonder how, you know, if the staff wanted a longer weekend too, that's going to make it hard for them to take off because they've missed training. But I think the main thing is, how much will it benefit the students for staff development to be in May when school's almost done?
To be honest, a lot of this May 24th time would probably be used for data analysis and placements. So when we start talking about towards the end of the year and we have assessment data and we're, you know, building classes for next year, and we're looking at, you know, wrapping up some of the academic plans for intervention, things like that, you need time for teachers to talk. And that is very, very hard to do on this 11 or 12. The 12th is a teacher day, but it's cleanup. We can't schedule any meetings contractually. And the 11th on the half day is like, you're just still trying to breathe. Like, we made it through. So I think that was the reason it was the 24th and not put into in April.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. And kind of piggybacked on this is this year, we provided something after school for those students during that staff development day. Has that been well received and well used by our students and their families?
We did not max out, and not even close to maxing out. It's been utilized minimally from the middle school level, more from the elementary level. I don't think it would be a significant issue to continue it at the elementary level. I mean, across the board, the middle school students come across. So I don't think it was would be an issue. And basically what we've done, we've kept the paraprofessionals on those days. They've run, you know, several of them, we've had a rotating basis. A few have run that after, you know, I'm going to call it after school. It's within the paraprofessional hours. They've run some sort of thing after school. And then the group of paraprofessionals that are not managing students are engaged in professional development. So that's why they switch off between managing, you know, students and their professional development. But I don't see an issue with that. I just would want to make sure I talk to unions. And typically what I do is once I have some general idea that the board is relatively supportive of this type of calendar, I bring these to union heads, both WESS and which is the what we're calling a non-certified group, and then the certified teaching staff. So share it with them one more time.
So then, since you're going to be working on putting in the budget, together the budget, and that way, if the other board members agree, I would think that you would want to account for that same program for the next year for those 6 days. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you could hold this for a month, or you could approve it. It's up to you. If you want me to, if you want to hold it for a month and come back in February and approve, as long as I know this is the path I'm on, I'll get some final confirmation from unions and make sure they're in support of it. I always like them to look at it too, to be honest with you, and make sure I show them the number of days. We count the professional development days. We identify the, where the time is, because obviously they have days contractually that are built into it. So
So do you want us to wait?
I'm fine. I'm fine waiting a month, as long as if you're going to have some significant suggestions for changes, I would like to know that before I bring it to them.
Does anybody have any ideas for changes at this point?
Okay.
I do think it's a good idea, to run it by the two unions first and make sure that it works for them. And then we could approve the final agreement. Phil, back to those Fridays, would it be possible to provide those days for free for parents? Continue to do that? I think we used ARPA money for it this year. Did we?
I think we used non-lapsing funds to do that.
Okay,
We got them on transportation, and to be honest, the amount of money it's just transportation, honestly.
Okay.
It's very, very minimal. And it's because we budget for a certain number of paraprofessional days, and they have to work that day. So it's already in the budget. It's just the cost of the transportation, maybe some general supplies. So I don't think it would be unheard of for you to offer that again as a free opportunity on just those early release days.
I think it's really important for working parents, that they have that consistent schedule, not having to find daycare on those days. So if we can do that, that would be great. Okay, does everybody
Laura
agree?
has her hand up.
Oh, I can't see. I'm
That's
seeing.
why I was going to stop sharing, because
Okay.
Laura has her hand up.
So
All right, Laura?
I should have asked earlier, so August 30th is, so it's before kids start, right? So it's professional development and then a meet and greet. I don't know that I remember seeing that before, a meet and greet.
So the meet and greet has always been on the day before the school starts. And so with students coming in on the 31st, this is where the meet and greet happens.
Is that center or is that both schools?
It is now both schools. It's moved into both schools. I think it was really only center, and now we've done it for both. It allows students to go walk their schedule, to meet the staff, to get into the rooms, to see the building. It's been very, very well attended, and I think very beneficial, setting some minds at ease of knowing where I'm going the next day.
Okay, yeah, I didn't remember having that at Hall, and I didn't remember seeing it last year.
Yeah, Laura, what happened was we used to call it, it used to be 2 days, right? Well, one of the 2 days, half of the day would be the meet and greet, and so you lose a half a day, and then you have contractually a half day setup, so you lose a full day out of these 3 between meet and greet and the classroom setup. That's contractually. So we're gonna this room setup, we might give them half the day on this day, and this half day might be meet and greet, and the second part of the day might be professional development. It's just that on the calendar we're showing there's no school those 3 days, the first day of school, and the meet and greet absolutely would be on the 30th.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And they set up a schedule, so you have a 1 hour window that your child will go and visit their classroom. So it's really beneficial for the kids, especially the little ones who may not have been in the school or don't know where their classrooms are. So, all right, any other discussion about the calendar? So do we all agree to vote on it next month? Once everybody's had the chance to take a look at it? Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
You are gonna need the old business A emergency leave. You are going to need that on your agenda tonight, and you do need to do it in executive session. So you'll need a motion to go into executive session to review a personnel matter related to emergency leave.
Can we go out of order and do free breakfast first and then go into executive session, or?
That's up to you. If you want to make a motion to change it, that's up to you. I mean,
Okay,
either
I'm
way, you'd have to come back for present to speak and board comment, so. I don't think it's gonna take long, but
Okay,
that's up to
okay.
you.
All right, well, let's follow this sequence then and go into executive session right now. I move that we go into executive session to discuss an emergency leave and invite the superintendent.
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Or oppositions or abstentions? Okay,
So the folks that are in the meeting, if you could pop yourself into the waiting room, or I'll have to send you there. We're gonna pause the recording. It is 8:42. Okay, you're good to go. Thank you. We came out of executive session at 8:57.
okay. And I would like to make a motion that we approve a continuation of Christine Columba's emergency leave until our next board meeting, which will be February 14th, 2023. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Donna, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, we have one more item on our agenda tonight. Phil, our free breakfast lunch extension.
Yep. Here. So, we have to give 30 days notice. I kind of gave you this spiel already. We have to give 30 days notice to be able to end the free breakfast lunch program because of the funds we received. It was currently approved through the end of February. That was your last approval. And the specific funding for this purpose was provided by the government. And so our funds are set to expire. We haven't even hit our own funds yet. Our funds, we got like 60 grand. They will expire sometime this month. And we have a significant amount of reimbursement funds still through the food services account. And so you can see that if you add these two numbers here together, that's still, after all your reimbursement, you're in the $170,000 range, which is, we were in the $12,000 range a few years back before COVID. So I'm going to recommend that you utilize those funds, which is exactly the same recommendation I made you last time, that you utilize those funds to maintain providing free breakfast and lunch to all students through April of 23. I'll be honest, you'll have to revisit this again in March, but my feeling is that there's a very good chance you're going to be able to extend this through the end of the school year, and allow everybody to be free, because what happens is the kids that are already designated as free, it doesn't change anything for them, but we still get the reimbursements back. The kids that are on reduced, we get a money back for them, and then we only pay a portion for them. And then the kids that are not free or reduced, they just get a free lunch or breakfast, or both if they want it. So there's no reimbursement from them. So you have the money to do it. There's no question whether you have the money to do it. And to be honest, you have too much money in this account. This is a separate account from the Board of Education. It's a self-funded program. You typically should have 3 months of funds in here, at the most, probably 60 grand. I think this might not even break 100 by the end of the year. So again, my recommendation is to continue free breakfast and lunch for all students through April 23 using your school lunch fund balance.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Or I could make a motion that we extend the free breakfast lunch program free to all students through April of 2023. Do we have a second?
Second.
Herb? Thank you. Any discussion? Donna?
Quick question, Phil. How much a month net? Because obviously we get reimbursed 100% for certain students, partial for others, and then the others we cover 100%. How much a month do we end up?
It's about, so it costs us about 30,000 a month with food and employees. And that's a little bit of a higher month where we have more sales. So we're going off of, that's why I say if we over a couple extra months here, 3 months, if we really hit $90,000 by April, I'd be really surprised. But we're trying to be conservative just to make sure we don't run through the money fast. If every kid suddenly gets breakfast every day and every kid gets lunch every day, obviously the money is depleted faster. But our number that we're looking at, and we can go back and look at purchase meals, is about, the cost is about 30,000 a month. And that's why I'm confident with going through April.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of extending the free breakfast lunch program until April of 23, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? And any abstentions? Herb, you were an aye, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, motion passes. All right, now we are ready for our second present to speak. Just a reminder to state your name and your address. Michelle? Michelle from her iPhone?
Yep. Hi, Michelle Christensen, Birch Meadow Lane. I just want to thank Donna for bringing to light and questioning the current state of the schools and it being allowed to get to this point. I appreciate the charge and support, and I fully support the SBC and their need to address a new or updated school, but that doesn't excuse the current state of the schools. As a parent who's reached out within the last year about environmental hazards, this only furthers the concern of children being in this environment for the foreseeable future, as nothing will be completed for a few years. I hope there will be continued fixes regardless of the SBC outcome for the health of all students and faculty that enter these buildings. I may have misunderstood or possibly missed something. So if this is the case, I give an advance apology, but we shouldn't be making excuses for the state of the school regardless of age. We still have an obligation to make it as healthy and safe of an environment as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else present to speak? Okay, board comments. Who would like to start us out with board comments tonight? Herb?
Yeah, I'll start off. As long as no one critiques what I say later on. I'd like to thank Erin for her presentation on the science curriculum. And I look forward to further discussion of that. Also, Phil has worked very hard on the development of the new school, and I hope we get a good turnout at all of the sessions that we have. because there are a lot of people in town that really don't know what's happening in the schools. And I think that we're reaching a certain number, but I'm not sure we're reaching everyone in town. So I run across a lot of people who just don't know that we're even in the process of developing a possible new school, new K-8 school. Also, budget time is coming up, and I know the administration and Phil have been working on the budget, and I was hoping that we could possibly get a advanced copies of the budget, or are we just going to get it that on that particular day that those items come up on the agenda? I know it's hard because you're refining it and everything, but is there any opportunity of getting material ahead of time? Thank you.
Do you want me to respond? Herb, I'll do my best, but I'm sorry. I'm not going to guarantee that right now.
Okay, any more comments?
I'll go second.
Laura?
So I just want to echo Herb in thanking Aaron and Katie for the presentation on the science curriculum. I'm very excited about it. Just wish there was still more time, but one thing at a time. Also wanted to thank Matt and Sean for their work on Christmas Day, and you, I'm sure, Phil, were right in the midst of all of that, fixing the newest flood going on there. Welcome Malin Gallo, I think you said, who is coming in as the new 4th grade teacher. And wishing everybody a continued Happy New Year, I guess. Right, since this is our first time in 2023 meeting. So we'll see each other on Valentine's Day next.
Okay. Tracy, anything tonight or?
No, I mean, I echo what's been said so far, and also thank you for Mary Kay for bringing us an update, more information, so we can make a better decision. So we could make a better decision. Yeah, I think that's about all today. It was a
Okay.
good meeting.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Donna?
Okay, I guess that leads me to the end. First of all, yes, Happy New Year. Couple things. One is I would love it if we could meet with Tammy Nuccio and Jeff Gordon. For those of you who are unaware, I believe Tammy is on the state appropriation committee or whatever to help towns get money. And since it looks like our town is going to be looking for lots of money, whether they fix what we have, renovate hall, or build new, it would be prudent to have somebody who maybe has a little bit of power, hear what we're thinking and give us some guidance. So I'd love that. And as one of the people in present to speak said, it would also be good for us to have an idea of what it would be gross and net any potential reimbursement should neither one of the SBC things get approved, so that people really can compare all 3 options and make an intelligent decision. And then a while ago, I'd asked for sex ed curriculum, not necessarily to be discussed at a board, but just so that I could have it. The email I got was very, very general, almost like there was like 4 points, I think. So that wasn't enough to give me the information I was looking for. I appreciate all the work that's gone into the science curriculum. I gotta say, I had a lot of fun looking at some of the experiments that I was able to Google. I still think the elephant toothpaste should be done outside At least based upon what I saw on YouTube, I would not want to be on the custodial staff cleaning up what's inside and that way, but it looked like a lot of fun. And maybe they can even incorporate a family science experiment night so that the kids can show off what they're learning and how they're doing it, so that parents and community members can see it in action. You know, what greater way to encourage the kids and support programs than to see what they're doing. So those are my things for now. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Donna. I'm going to sound repetitive, but I did want to give a special thanks to Phil and Matt and Sean for Christmas Day. That is way above and beyond the call of duty, and it's well appreciated. And then also my condolences to the Tharp family too for their loss. And thanks to Katie and Aaron and Mary Kay for presenting to us tonight, so we could provide the kids with some wonderful opportunities in curriculum. Okay, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn? I make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Second.
Herb, let's take your second. All righty. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you all very much and have a good month until we meet again in February.
Good job, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.